So thank you very much for joining us. As I said, we know some people are still online outside, but we didn't want to wait too much longer to start, also because we know we have people watching with us and listening and participating online. So thanks to all of you who are joining us via the webcast. My name is Jeff Brez. I'm the Chief of NGO Relations, Advocacy, and Special Events in the Outreach Division of the Department of Global. We have had a name change. So you have known us for years as the Department of Public Information, DPI, but we are now DGC or GLOCOMS. We'll see what we end up getting used to calling ourselves and what others call us. So you'll have a part to play in that. We'll see how it goes. So before I start, I want to remind everyone that we don't want you to turn your phones off at all or your devices. Just maybe turn the volume down so that if it rings, we don't interrupt perhaps a speaker. And as always, we encourage you to share your thoughts and ask any questions also via social media, even if you're in the room, but especially if you're joining us via the webcast. And we are paying attention. There's two ways that you can send a comment, and the comments will be, or questions will be sent to the moderator. One is through Twitter, one is through Facebook. Our handle is at UNDPINGO, still the old handle, working on that. So at UNDPINGO, so you can shout us out at Facebook or on Twitter with your comments. And I don't know if the camera can get our two wonderful interns, or at least one of them, and the other one's going to join. So Nichols, if you can stand up. So Nichols is actually the person that's going to be watching Facebook, right? Twitter. Okay, and we have another colleague that will be watching Facebook, so I use either one of those. And the hashtag, though, today is going to be a new hashtag. I don't think it'll be our forever hashtag, but for today, as you can see on your monitors, it's UN with Civil Society. And that is one of the elements of the reform of the United Nations, and very much at the heart of the reform of the Department of Global Communications. So it's not just a name change, it's a reform in the way that we're doing business and the way that we try and deliver advocacy and communications in partnership with civil society. As you may know, you can find out a lot more information about the way the department works and what the department is doing if you come to either an orientation event for newly associated NGOs, representatives, and even if you're not newly associated or new to the UN, there's a lot to learn at these sessions. So I encourage you to look for the orientation the orientation session or the communications workshop, and plan to attend, because you'll learn a lot about what's new, about how the UN is communicating there, and how the reform process is changing the way that we are doing communications. So keep an eye out for those. Just a couple of things to highlight. So what has changed? You may have noticed some of these changes already. We used to have sort of news and media, television and radio. We don't even really use those words anymore. It's digital multimedia content. There's many more podcasts, and we understand that radio is a very, very important medium to reach people in different parts of the world, but we have to, keep up with the times and also put a lot of focus on creating content that can be accessed on the devices that people are using all over the world. So a lot of new content is created in that sense. Also, social media. I don't know if you are watching the UN Social Media Challenge, but they are available now and very strong in all 6 UN languages. Of course, the flagship one is the original UN. On Twitter, we have well over 10 million followers now, which is fantastic. And the other channels are doing very well as well. So a lot more resources going into that social media outreach, because that's where people are getting their information and that's how people are interacting. Another piece of news, how many of you have read an article in the beautiful and storied UN Chronicle magazine? So the UN Chronicle has been around for many, many years, and it has seen now its last printed version that is going digital. So the beautiful content will be there, but it will be available digitally and in different ways. So it's a way to go green, and it's a way to make that content more available to audiences around the world. So this is something that you would assume, but the Department of Global Communications, GLOCOMS, if you will, our objectives are to promote global awareness and understanding of the United Nations and raise awareness about priority UN issues and how people are coming together here in this building and around the world to make change happen. We're dedicated to interacting and partnering with diverse audiences as we build support for peace and security, sustainable development, and human rights for all. And this all points to partnerships. We really put a high value on partnerships, and I think any of you who have interacted with our team, I really hope that you feel like you are considered a partner, because we certainly feel that way ourselves. So the NGO community and civil society at large is absolutely for us a partner, and we're always looking for ways to strengthen that partnership. So what do we do, our team? Many of you, if not most of you in this room, know what we do, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about what our team does. We organize regular briefings for the NGO or civil society community. We organize smaller chat series, which is sort of like a briefing, but smaller number of people, and happens in our resource center, so a little more time for question and answer and networking on a specific topic. We manage the application process for applying, so applications for association with the Department of Public Information, and linked to that is the annual review process. We manage that process and use it as a way to gather data about what NGOs around the world that are associated with DPI are communicating about, who they're communicating to, what platforms they're using to communicate. So in a couple of months, when we have the data from 2018, we look forward to sharing that with you. It's actually quite interesting. We also have quite a strong youth representative program. You know that all NGOs who associate with the Department of Public Information get, Department of Global Communications now, get 6 grounds passes. And 2 of those, if it's a Department of Global Communications entity, are designated specifically allocated for youth. So 2 are for youth, and we have over 500 youth representatives through that sort of policy who have access to this institution. And there are a subset of those who interact very closely with us, but many hundreds of others who come and go and are active in other ways. The subset that we work with, the Youth Steering Committee and others, are very active. They've been active in the conference. We're very proud of our partnership with the youth, and also that's something that we're building on. And that takes me to talking about our next conference. So the 68th UN Civil Society Conference, this is a new name, the 68th, so we kept the number so that we're still counting up, the 68th United Nations Civil Society Conference. So there will be in all the new documents, you're going to see an asterisk, and the asterisk is going to point you to the bottom where it will say formerly known as the DPI NGO Conference. So it's the 68th UN Civil Society Conference. Is going to take place from 26 to 28 August in Salt Lake City. And the title of the conference is Building Inclusive and Sustainable Communities. I think that's it. Building, yes, inclusive and sustainable communities. We had it together at the end, and we dropped that because we thought it was obvious. So we're so thrilled about this opportunity to bring the world and the UN together in Salt Lake City. The vision of the mayor of Salt Lake City, Jackie Biskupski, has sort of been the driving force to make this possible. The community in Salt Lake could not be more welcoming. And they're very excited. I myself have been there and talked to a lot of NGO representatives and key stakeholders there, and the sense of welcoming and a desire to have the world come to discuss these issues is extremely strong. And I myself was really moved by the warm reception that we got, and that I'm sure everyone will get in August. Also, our co-hosts, as is always the practice, is the NGO Executive Committee. We look forward to continuing working with them. And Planning is underway. So a couple of highlights of what's happening with the planning process. First, we have had a couple of town halls here in New York, and we also had sort of town hall meetings with stakeholders in Salt Lake City. And based on all of that feedback, we have drafted a concept note, which we're getting feedback from the co-host at this point. So basically, it's a one-pager that'll create the umbrella for the conference and lay out hopefully the 6 key themes for what we have typically called the roundtables, but the key thematic sessions. So that's exciting. It's coming hopefully in a final version to everyone in the next 2 weeks. In addition, we have a process underway to determine who will be the chair of the conference. So we received nominations and self-nominations for chair. Well over 20, I don't know the number. Was it over 30? Could have been. 25. Yes, nominations. So we're reviewing those again together with Salt Lake City, the mayor's office, and other key stakeholders there, and the NGO executive committee. So we'll talk to a couple of folks, and once we sort of alight on the right person, then we will make that announcement. But we have wonderful candidates and a great field to choose from, so it'll be a difficult process because it's always difficult to have to choose from among wonderful people, but also a wonderful process because we'll have a chair and we'll be ready to go. So I know you all want to start talking about the conference. We do. We need this concept note to really be able to start going out and talking about the conference, and that's on the way. So please bear with us. We also are feeling, ready to talk more broadly about the conference. In addition, we have, finally, the subcommittees. So the subcommittees, thank you for sending in your expressions of interest to serve on the subcommittees. When it's a New York conference, all the subcommittees are based here because when there's a host city or country, then typically we have sort of a parallel process. So all of the host committees that meet here will have also sort of parallel host committees that are running in Salt Lake City, and those subcommittees will all take decisions together and work together. So that's the way it's going to work. And there are a couple of subcommittees that will be in the lead based out of Salt Lake City, and that will be things like, obviously, logistics, just for example, because, they're there. So they're going to take care of that in the lead, but with a lot of feedback from us and all of you. So the final fun thing that we have to let you know about the conference is that we now have a conference visual identity. We have a conference logo. Here it comes. So, yay, thank you. So our colleagues in our graphic design unit in our department are putting together a package of all the web files and other files that you will need for printing, etc. And we will share those so you can begin putting it on your websites and getting the word out using this beautiful visual. So thank you in advance for that, and we'll post those as soon as we can. We expect it any moment. And so for the planning of the conference, the next town hall for conference planning is the 3rd week of February. So again, watch the calendar and mark the date. What is the date? Nichols, what is the date of the town hall?
February 28th.
February 28th. Okay, so mark your calendars for February 28th, please. Okay, a final bit of news. We have extended the deadline for the 2018 annual review submissions. The deadline has been extended until February 10th, 2019. We did have some issues with our back end. It's the year of back end issues with our IT systems. I'm so sorry about that. We had an issue with the application system also for association, so that caused some delays and frustrations for some groups, but we've really been working hard to make sure that we catch up, and I think we are caught up now, but we have extended the deadline until 10 February for the annual review, and please do submit your annual review, even if you don't need passes for those of you who are watching. And if you have any inquiries, you can send us an email about that on undpingo@un.org, undpingo@un.org. So email us there. So now, just a reminder, so if you're not with us in the room, don't forget the hashtag for this briefing is hashtag UN with Civil Society. And it is now my pleasure to give the floor to my wonderful colleague, Ms. Hawa Diallo, who's having a chat over there about something. And she's chief of our new unit. So we've been called NGO Relations. We'll be called something slightly different moving forward. We will let you know what that is soon, but she's chief of the unit, and she's going to introduce our panel. And there's actually one thing that I skipped, if you don't mind. So I was talking about the work of our team, and it's actually a very important piece of news. So those of you who are familiar with the NGLS, the Non-Governmental Liaison Service, they have been moved into, sort of absorbed into the Department of Global Communications, and they are a part of our team. So basically that means, the sort of 2 staffing positions that are going to be, and with the support of all of our team, be focused on partnership and stakeholder outreach for high-level General Assembly events, mostly in partnership with the Office of the President of the General Assembly, but also others. So NGLS is definitely alive and well. It's in our house, so to speak, and if you have any questions about that, don't hesitate. And actually, yes, before we go to Hawa, we were supposed to have a Q&A, so if there are any questions, yes, I shall take them. Yes, and then yes. Hold on, wait, your microphone's not on, sorry. We want those listening on the webcast, if we can't hear you, they can't hear you. Yeah, just give it a moment, maybe raise your hands so the technician can see, there we go.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Will there be a central hotel in Salt Lake offering a conference discount, or we all just make our own arrangements?
I think that the host committee is working on those arrangements. I think there will be a range of different prices, accommodations available, and I think everyone will find what they want in a very convenient location. So we don't have details about that, but we will within the next, I don't know, couple of months, so 1 to 2 months. We understand this is important for people to plan their travel, and we take it very, very seriously, so we'll make sure to provide that information as soon as possible.
Do we know where the conference is taking place?
So yes, the conference is taking place at the Salt Palace Convention Conference Center. So it's quite a big venue. Come one, come all. So yes, and then yes, Richard.
Right. Thank you, Jeff. Richard Jordan, I was chair of the 60th conference. It's always a great experience. And thanks for all the good hard work, and Happy New Year to all. Just one question. Will NGLS physically be moving into the space at the Resource Center? Thank you.
Good question. In a sense, we're now one team, so yes, because we're all going back and forth. But we are using that space. And so NGLS, if it has to, if you have to consider it to have a physical location, it remains in that location. Yes. 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 Birjan, and then in the back.
Thank you so much, Jeff, and Happy New Year to all. My question is general. First, I'd like to inform that we are excited. We submitted our annual review, so we should be considered for the co-chairs. So my question is in relation with the co-chair for the subcommittee. You mentioned, yes, you received the submissions, applications, but we haven't heard that when we're going to get the responses. Thank you.
Yes, so I think that we've given ourselves a slightly generous, but definitely maximum 2 weeks before we get back to everyone. So just a little bit more patience, and in a maximum of 2 weeks, we'll reach out to everyone. Okay? Thank you. Yes.
Good morning, Jeff, and good morning, everyone. We are new. We are the new NGO affiliated with the UN. We are from New York University, Shanghai. So as you know, NYU Shanghai is the newest global campus for New York University, which is actually in New York City. We have now 2 international campuses in Shanghai and Abu Dhabi. So if you want to know more about NYU Shanghai, please go online. But I have 2 youth representatives for NYU Shanghai, Tim Wu and also Zachary Yang Ning. So they are our study away students this semester in New York City. So I have the great pleasure to present our youth representative to you, and we look very much forward to working with you and also other members. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thrilled to have you, and we're thrilled to meet these 2 young men who are going to be, hopefully, we'll be seeing a lot of you, yes? All right, if there are no more questions, I'm going to hand it over to everybody's favorite, Hawa Diallo.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. So I'm going to really ask, really with a really big heart, because I'm really honored to ask my panelists for today, Sandra, Jean-Paul, and Alibe, to join me on the podium so we can get started with the show. Well, I want you all to give yourself a hand of applause, because really with the weather outside, hello, come on, clap for yourselves. So welcome, everybody. I'm really excited. This is our first briefing of the year, and we have a lot of goodies in store for you in 2019. At the helm of that is the 68th UN Civil Society Conference, but in between there, we have a lot of awesome and dynamic things that we're going to be doing. So we hope that rain or shine or snow or sleet, that you'll be joining us every Thursday for civil society briefings and every Tuesday for the chat series. I think the chat series will start in just about maybe 2 weeks. We'll have one, I believe it's either 15 or 17 February. We'll announce it soon. It's the 14th of February on Valentine's Day. Wow. Make sure to bring chocolates when you come. But we'll have one to talk more about, new name, new year, and what does that really mean for the department and for all of us in terms of how we're communicating and interacting. So my colleague Swati Dave, who's not here with us today, is the person who's the focal point for that, and she'll be getting in contact with everybody pretty soon. I wanted to just add 2 things. Richard had asked about the space of NGLS and NGO relations. I wanted you guys to tell me what you think about this. You can send an email or on the question and answer, because one idea we're having is to have more of a multimedia space in the UNITAR building, the NGO relations office. So if you have any ideas, in addition to things like, youth meetings we have there, focus meetings, the chat series, what can we do to really make that space really more, multimedia in terms of engagement. And talking about that, I want to give out a shout out to Mary Norton from Felician College, who actually is in the Resource Center now watching this briefing online, because unfortunately she wasn't able to make it here physically. So, can we do more things like that, where we have little sessions where we're doing things online and connecting not only from people in New York or New Jersey or Albany, but people, out there globally in the world. So I look forward to hearing about that from you. And secondly, I wanted to mention that an initiative that one of our NGOs, US Service, I should say, is going to do for the conference, and they'll be announcing it soon in our newsletter, is that they are actually going to be hosting participants to the UN Civil Society Conference in Salt Lake City in their homes. So Richard asked, or somebody asked about hotels. So of course we'll have a conference rate for the hotel, but definitely you have that kind of unique offer also, which ties into the whole theme of the conference, and this briefing, giving back really to communities to make them inclusive and sustainable. And lastly, somebody mentioned again about the annual review submissions. We hope to have everybody ready to get their passes by the 1st of February. So my colleague Felipe is here, so you can attack him in a nice and generous way before he leaves this room and ask him about your annual review. Sorry, Felipe. So welcome once again, everybody, to this briefing that we are calling Giving Back to Create Inclusive and Sustainable Communities. I'm really, really happy to have you here today, and I think it's really going to be informative and inspiring. I was talking to panelists before that, at the start of the year, we really like to, do a briefing that's very motivational, inspirational, that has a little oomph. And that's how we came up with this briefing and thinking about the title of the conference, how can we connect it? Because we really want people to be able to leave after this briefing to go out there and say, we're ready to do it. We're doing it, but we're going to do more. We're going to conquer, all these issues that are out there. So I'm really excited to hear the personal stories and the stories of the work that these phenomenal people on the panel are doing to really give back to communities. And when we say, we use the term inclusive and sustainable, but there's everything between. I mean, are there creative things you're doing? Are you doing things that make communities and families resilient, safe? All the things that are encompassed inside of SDG 11, which is what the Civil Society Conference in Utah will be focusing on. So, of course, I encourage you guys to ask a lot of questions about their experiences and to really find out what they're doing to really contribute and to support to inclusiveness and sustainability within their communities. And I really, not even I hope, I'm sure that this is going to be truly an informative and a really invigorating discussion today. So because we really want to get in a really good mood, we have two performances here today. They're really two very dynamic and strong women, because we are hashtag Women Strong in this unit. Can I hear something? Yeah. We do love our men, equal opportunity, but the women rule. So they're going to be performing for you today. But before we do that, I want to remind you, again, as Jeff had said, to be sure to use our social media handles at UNDPI NGO. And did you guys notice we have a new one? Yeah. There? Shout it out for me. Hashtag UN with Civil Society. So we're trying new things, so let's see how that goes. And if you have any thoughts about that, let us know. And before I introduce Stephanie, I want, Jeff has started introducing our interns. I want them to stand up. I hope all of them are here, because they really put this briefings together. We have Nicole's, who was here before. Oh, there she is, taking a picture. Nicole Zavino. We have Simona Ispas. I think I saw her. They're all new. And Prat may not be with us. Prat Valivetti. If she's not here, I'll introduce her later. So these are really the strong people behind all the work and all the smiles and beauty that you see here on the panel. So we love newbies. I also want to welcome all the NGOs that have been associated, especially the NYU Shanghai, because all of our NGOs are dynamic, they're ecstatic, but we especially like the newbies, and we have a lot of things in store for you. So with no further ado, it's a pleasure for me to welcome Stephanie Collin to the stage. She's a longtime friend of our section and unit. And Stephanie will be performing a song, Recipe for Freedom. Take it away, Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yes? Awesome. Okay. So, yeah, great. So I know that each of us are here for one reason or another because we're committed to peace on the planet. And I know that you are the vessel of transformation, which is why I wrote this song called Recipe for Freedom. And I mean, really, the first step in being a vessel for transformation on the planet is to just open your mouth, right? Like, that's literally the first step. So we're all going to open our mouths in this song. and you're going to join me. Don't worry, don't freak out. It's going to be great. This is what it's going to sound like. I'm going to need your voice. I really do need your voice. This song needs your voice. This world needs your voice. This is what it will sound like. And let it rise up, and let it rise up, and let it rise up, and a long one, and let it rise. So let's just try it real quick before I start, okay? So literally all you have to do is open your mouth and let it out. Let's try it. Ready? You can sound terrible. It's going to be fine anyway. Your mics aren't on. 1, 2. And let it rise up, and let it rise up, and let it rise up. A long one. And let it rise. Okay, you sound really, really good. You sound really good. You can sing louder. You sound really good. All right. I'll tell you when it's time. You'll know. Use it as a salve, an oil or a balm, a drizzled aromatics in the heart of your palm. Nourished on your skin, in your bones, it feeds your soul. It's the recipe for freedom. It's the recipe. It is now my winter, and I will be rebirthed, but it will soon be summer, and I will discern who it is I am and who I cannot be, planting what I need for freedom. Planting what I need. All ingredients will ripen on the tree. Vines of grace, roots of faith, limbs of creativity in the orchard of ancient pain and misery. Grow ingredients, grow ingredients to freedom. And I know I've got my skin, my bones and my ego and my mindsets, my hardships, my limits, my control. I'll just put them in a bowl and just stir until I know. This aroma I'm churning is my freedom. This aroma, and you just say try it, try it, try it. No, but I don't like this, like this, like this. You want me to just taste it, taste it, taste it. And do not waste a good recipe for freedom. And you just say try it, try it, try it. Or you might even like this, like this, like this. And just be patient, patient, patient. And let it rise. You ready? And let it rise up. And let it rise up. And let it rise up. And let it rise. And let it rise. Thank you. Thank you, Hawa.
Thank you so much, Stephanie Collin, founder of Free Spirits Music. You never disappoint. Come on, show her some love. I need more than that. Thank you so much, Stephanie. So I mentioned today we have three really phenomenal speakers. We have with us today Ms. Alibe Hampshire. She is the Vice President and Chief Operations Officer at the Institute for Multicultural Communication, Cooperation and Development, IFMACADI. We are also glad to welcome Sandra Uwiranyama, co-founder of Jimbori Fund, and also to welcome Jean-Paul Laurent, who is the founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of Unspoken Smiles. So it is my pleasure to welcome Alibe, who is our first panel speaker, to share her really phenomenal story with us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Yara, for that lovely introduction. Can you hear me? No? There? Okay. So I would like to begin by telling you how I came to be one of your inspirational speakers today. As Ms. Diallo mentioned, I was born and raised in Santiago, Chile, during the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet. Under his regime, Chile suffered through a very depleted economy because of the U.S. embargo. At the time, most of the Chileans, even the ones with money, were hard-pressed for bare necessities. Though my surroundings were humble, my childhood was filled with love, as in my family, always find a way to get by together. This created a safe place for a child to learn, to grow, and dream. So much so that at the age of 5, I climbed into my father's lap, and I asked him, "Dad, do you think that I should become a nun in the future?" Of course, I don't come from a very religious family, so imagine what my father thought at the time. He said to me, "Why do you think you need to become a nun?" And I just responded, "Because I have this great responsibility that I have to fulfill in this earth." Of course, I was 5. So at this point, he laughed, and he told me that I didn't need to do that to actually do something great in this earth. And he left it up to me to find my way. At the age of 7, I told my parents that I was coming to the United States. Of course, again, everybody laughed, because by now I was very well known as this little bundle of dreams. So one of the questions was, how are you going to make it to the United States if you don't even have decent shoes to walk it there? I just once again told my parents I will find a way. Around the same year, and keeping surprising my parents, I announced that I was going to college and I was going to become a lawyer. My mom replied once again, "We don't have money for you to go to college, so stop thinking crazy." 7 years old, I looked at her and I said, "Don't worry, I will pay for it. I will find my way." Ultimately, my parents would shape the path that I would eventually take with my career. I recall one weekend gathering for lunch with my family. An old beggar knocked on our door, asking for food to be placed in this small, tiny little can. My father immediately approached the beggar and invited him in. He sent him to wash up at his bathroom workshop and invited him to our table. Now imagine, my mother, my sister, and I didn't know what to do. Now we had a beggar sitting at our table. But as my father drew conversation out of this man, my perspective changed. He was no longer a beggar. Now he was an honored guest at our table. So I sit and listen very carefully. At one point, the old man thanked my family for allowing him to feel like a normal human being again by simply sharing a meal with him. I was always very impressed by the way my family helped others, in any small way they could. Another example I remember a few families living next to a soccer field in my neighborhood. They live all in small wooden cabins, one-room cabins actually, no amenities, just a latrine available to them. My mother here took the lead to help them out. The rule of our house was to let them come in whenever they needed water. Of course, they came in, collected water, and took it home. They were forever grateful, as it was part of their survival. A whole generation floated through my house, but then eventually they moved to a new home, to a new neighborhood, and it remains a joy to know that the children, all whom were my age and became my friends, have since grown, married, and have families of their own. Me too. I also moved. Came to the United States at the age of 18 to work as a nanny for a family that my aunt used to work for before. Once here, I learned English, got married, and had 2 children of my own. Sorry. And yes, with the help of my new family, I also put myself to college. And once again, I found my way. Although I entered John Jay College of Criminal Justice with the intention to prepare for law school, the idea of becoming a lawyer lost its luster with time. The many disparities in the judicial system disappointed me. Though I was still in love with the concept of American justice and its Constitution, I came to learn, I came to question my deeply rooted goal of becoming a lawyer. I shared my concerns with one of my policy analysis classes professor, who helped me immensely. He responded, similar to my father many years before, that there were more than one way to serve the law. And that's when I discovered my true calling. I graduated with my master in public administration with a focus on policy analysis. And again, I found my way. As I continued to take my parents' teaching to heart, I became more involved in my community. Through my children's school, I joined the PTA. I also served twice in the school leader team, and I volunteered to that school for 8 years. But I began to practice what I learned in college and accomplished a few things, such as the installation of a traffic light near the school, 2 speed bumps front and back of the school, the repavement of the street, the replacement of a broken fire hydrant, and the creation of 3 additional posts for crossing guards around the school grounds. The work paid off beyond the community. Because of it, I was introduced to the president of IMACARI, Mr. Ismael Betancourt Jr., for an interview, and the rest is history. Here I learned about the nonprofit work, community issues, and building partnerships. One of the greatest partnerships has been the UN, in particularly the Department of Global Communication Civil Society Unit. So thank you. Since our affiliation, our organization has grown immensely in terms of networking, social media, and strategic partner opportunities. Everyone here has been most welcoming and helpful, especially Felipe Quepo. So thank you, Felipe, for your guidance, your support, and your patience. Because of IMACARI, focus on multicultural issues, we have many forums, conferences, events related to topics affecting different communities. One of those more important projects now is the Puerto Rican Transformation Project. This project became more urgent after Hurricane Maria. The idea behind is to build self-sustainable recreational centers on the island so that when another hurricane hits again, the people of the community will be able to use these centers as shelters, have access to clean water, electricity, and internet access. Since this plan is very ambitious, we partnered with 3 entities to advance the project. One partner is the Infrastructure for Sustainable Development, I4SD, a global social enterprise which brings together traditional master planning, IoT technologies, and public-private partnerships to deliver sustainable and resilient programs and business models. Another partner is ClickMe. The startup tech company connects social causes with donors using an online transparent donation system. They also help companies understand and capitalize on returns from social investments. Lastly, we connected to a few communities in Puerto Rico to negotiate the procedures of the plan. Collectively, we presented our project during last year's conference here at the UN by hosting a panel discussion and an innovative virtual reality exhibit. The conference gave us a platform to promote the project, educate everybody about the situation in the island, expand our network, and continue to build partnership to future develop our plans. My family taught me the value of community. My professional life reinforced it. And today, my philosophy is to never miss an opportunity to connect, learn, and work with others. Networking also led me to an invitation to become an advisory committee member to the Pan American Development Foundation, one of the biggest foundations in the United States. They are also affiliated to the United Nations through the Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC. They also have programs and projects established in many parts of Latin America and the Caribbean, including my homeland, Chile. They also have similar projects in Puerto Rico. Where others might have seen this as a competition or a conflict, I saw this affiliation as a future partnership. Remember, in the end, we are all doing the same work to improve the lives of others, not the image of our organizations. That will come later as we do our jobs right and we serve our missions. In true partnership, inviting to the table our interns, volunteers, corporations, nonprofits, and especially the United Nations, we will succeed in achieving our goals. Only together we will find a way. That is why today I encourage all of you to put your ideas to action. Find your partners, get involved and participate in our United Nations 68 Civil Society Conference, and let's find a way to serve together. Thank you very much.
In listening to Alibe, I was thinking here, in putting together this briefing, I'm always thinking, what is it behind for me, even personally, as an individual, as a staff member, because for me, giving back is something that's really quite important. And I always have two things that I go back to. Of course, one is my family setting, because my parents were in public service. So even as a young person, I didn't know what public service was, but I know it's something that you had to do. But one thing that I realized a couple of years ago is that, you know, in the second grade, I don't know, maybe you're like what, maybe 7 or 8? I kind of found myself here. I went to school here in the U.S., in public school, on the playground, being the person that people came to stand up for them. And basically what I was doing is beating up boys who were bullying people on the playground. Believe it or not, I was a tomboy. And I did that a lot. And then a couple of years ago, I'm like, wow, I was a human rights defender. And that's how I quantified it. So, I mean, these are the things that shaped me. That at the 2 years old, not really being somebody beating people up, but I was defending human rights. So this is what this briefing about. Briefing is about thinking about your personal stories and what brings you to this place. So thank you very much, Alibe, for sharing that with us. So I'm really very honored to introduce another person who I consider really a sister, who's really doing phenomenal work and has a really very great story also to share with us. So it is really with honor and pride that I ask Sandra to take the mic and to share her story with us. Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you very much. I'm so honored to be here. My name is Sandra Uwiringiyimana, and anyone who can say it perfectly after this, I don't know, gets a free copy of my book. I am an author and the co-founder of the Jimbere Fund. I was born in the DRC, Congo. We just had an election. I don't know if any of you have been following, but it's such a big deal because it's our first ever peaceful transfer of power. And even then, there was so much controversy surrounding it that it's kind of hard to consider it a peaceful transition of power. I was born in 1994, right after the Rwandan genocide. And what a lot of people don't know is that that genocide actually spilled into the neighboring countries afterwards. So in 1995, 1996, the Tutsis in the neighboring countries started to see a lot of violence because of the genocide, because of a lot of the perpetrators had fled to the neighboring countries. Growing up, though, I'm a minority in Congo, but almost everyone in Congo is a minority because we all have our different ethnic backgrounds and languages. So I consider almost everyone that lives in Congo to be a minority. We were a different minority, however, because of that Tutsi aspect, which we didn't really, even though we all identified as Congolese, my people have lived in Congo for over 300 years. So it's kind of ridiculous to say that we're not Congolese. I mean, it's all I've ever known, it's all my parents have ever known, and my grandparents. I grew up, however, hearing from my classmates that I was Rwandese, and if you go back to Rwanda, you know, you're speaking Rwanda, so you don't belong here, even though they spoke other dialects that I didn't understand. But, you know, for some reason that never bothered me because I was very secure in who I was. You know, my parents never led me to believe that I was anything but a Congolese citizen. Even though we faced discrimination, they always believed there would be a day where everyone would be able to live harmoniously in Congo. And it's because of that that my dad always told me when I was younger that I would grow up to be Congo's first elected president. And I believed them, you know, even though everything in my environment was kind of unstable, and even though the world considered my environment to be one of the worst places to live as a woman, I never really took it to heart. I took school very seriously. It was like my favorite thing growing up. I went to school, and in the back of my mind, I always thought, I will graduate and I will live in Congo and eventually I will become president of Congo. I didn't know what steps I was going to take to get there, but I just knew that it was going to happen. Never in my life did I ever picture my life outside of Congo. In fact, I didn't even think there was anything better than Congo. So even though we grew up fleeing from country to country, I mean, by the age of by the age of 10, I had been a refugee in 3 countries. But what really what led me here is in 2004, we were refugees in Burundi. There was another civil war, which was very common for me. I talk about this very casually, and people are like, why do you talk about this so, like it happened all the time? Well, because it happened to me all the time. We fled constantly. It was not a shock. In fact, there were times where my father would show up and he didn't even have to say anything. I just know that it was time to go. So in 2004, we were living in a refugee camp in Burundi. We had been there for just like a little over 2 months, and the camp was attacked. We were attacked by people who didn't believe that we belonged in Congo. They believed that we kind of stole Congolese land and that we belong in Rwanda. And the perpetrators actually went on the radio the next day and took responsibility for the crimes. They killed 166 people in one night. I lost my sister, I lost cousins, and a lot of childhood friends, and almost everyone in that camp lost someone. So it was very hard to even grieve the people you lost because it just felt so big and so beyond you as an individual or as one family. Fast forward to 2007. In those 2 years, we lived in Burundi after the massacre, but then we moved to Rwanda and stayed there for a year, and then we moved back to Burundi after we heard of the United Nations resettlement program. And we went through the program since like the end of 2005, and our family was in the first group of people that were resettled from that tragic event. When we were resettled to America, I had no idea what to expect. I mean, it was like nothing I had ever known, and nothing I wanted, to be honest. There was a long time where I despised my parents for bringing me here, and not necessarily because of what I was experiencing here, but because of what I was missing. That feeling of belonging and never having to explain your identity. Even though I grew up in a place that constantly questioned my identity, because I knew who I was and because I could walk down the street and converse with people and just be myself, be Sandra, and not a refugee or a black girl, like labels that I had never heard before. At least I was used to the monsters that I grew up with, Here it was brand new monsters that I had to deal with. And unfortunately, your experiences, what leads a refugee to come here doesn't stay at the border. It comes with you, and you have to deal with it here in this new environment that you don't understand. As you can imagine, life was really tough. We didn't speak a word of English. It was hard to adjust in any of the American systems, like schools. It was terrifying. It was terrifying for me. It was terrifying for my parents. And I think for the first time, you get to see parents really kind of like, we don't know what's going on here, And my parents are kind of very hands-on parents who always knew what I was up to in school, who always kept up with my grades. I mean, they are the reason I was successful in school. So when we got here, that dynamic shifted. They could no longer call my teachers. They didn't understand my report cards. They didn't understand how to apply to get me in college, and all these things like we have to figure out. And people think that refugees have like this unlimited help, but it's usually for a couple of months, and then you're on your own. But while I was here, I've done a lot of work. I started my activism very young. I knew that what happened to me was wrong, and at first it began as a mission to keep my sisters legacy alive and to let people know that these people existed and they were loved and it's not fair and they deserve justice, especially because we know who committed the crimes. So I spent over the last 8 years sharing my story to different audiences and leaders and hoping for action for the Gatumba massacre. And about 3 years ago, I, still on my route of just telling my story and calling for attention on everything that's going on in the region, I realized that it didn't matter how many audiences I spoke to. If the girl in Congo is still living the same life, it doesn't matter how many, I can sit here and talk to you all day, but it doesn't change the fact that she's not going to school, or she doesn't have a meal, or she doesn't have sanitary pads. Like, all these things will not change for her from my talking. So I was like, I need to do something. We need to do something, and there's no reason we can't. So myself and my co-founders, we sat in a living room for over a year talking about how do we help back home. We have all these skills, we've all worked in different sectors, but how do we apply all our skills to help the woman in Congo, because they are the most vulnerable. Women in Congo are, they make less than 74 cents a day if they have a job. And they are constantly used as a weapon of war. I mean, you cannot count how many widows are in Congo. You cannot count how many children are born of rape in Congo. And especially in the region that we work in South Kivu, it has experienced so many conflicts over the years that the need is so great. And so I wanted to do something, but I wanted to do it differently. Unfortunately, where we work, a lot of nonprofits don't want to engage with the tribal conflicts that exist. So many of them will work with different groups, but never really together. And to me, I feel like it's actually fueling the fires, because they compete, and oftentimes, if a nonprofit, without even realizing it, you can pick a group for a project and cause like a war within that village because you picked a certain group and not another. So I wanted to go back and share my story with the people that are still there. I wanted the Congolese women to understand that there was no place like home, and that we need to work to build home because it is the best that we got. I mean, I've lived in the US for the past 12 years, and there's not a day that I don't wish I lived at home. And that's not to say that I haven't been prosperous in the US. I've had, great opportunities that I'm so incredibly thankful for, and I've gotten to do a lot of things, but at the end of the day, I still have all those labels that follow me around, no matter how comfortable I get, no matter how my accent becomes more and more American. I'm still a Congolese woman, and I'm still viewed as a refugee, or like, I often say, like, I walk outside and people see a black girl, and as soon as they talk to me, they see a refugee, and very rarely do they see Sandra. And I only ever feel that when I'm back home. So with the Jimbere Fund, we wanted to fight poverty, but also, most importantly, foster peace in the region by mobilizing and preparing women to become a catalyst for change. And the way we do that is that we get women from different ethnic groups and get them to work together, come up with a project, and we train them and finance them to bring that project to life. So that way they have a stake in each other's lives, and whenever something happens, they're first to call each other and to kind of be at each other's rescue, because they understand that this business will not work unless they're all working together. I visited our projects. I'm based here, so I go back and forth. I just came back in last summer, and I was visiting multiple villages. Some of these villages are, they butt heads with my people. And even seeing me, it was such a transformative experience for all of us, just sitting in one room and talking, and them sharing their story with me and all the people they've lost and in the wars, Like oftentimes we tend to think of what happened to me, and you want to blame someone. But in a place like Congo, everyone is a victim. And that's what I wanted everyone to know, that we're going to continue being victims unless we all work together to change Congo. And that's what I've been up to lately. If you would like to hear more about the Jimbere Fund, I'd be more than happy to share more. But thank you so much for this opportunity to share my work.
Thank you so much, Sandra. People who know me know I'm very emotional because I'm sitting back here, I'm like, really just very touched. I don't know how you're feeling, but I personally am just really very humbled and emotional about your story because it really, and this is what, this session is about, that regardless of the trials and tribulations, the challenges that people have faced, now I'm getting emotional, that you do have something, that you give back to community. And I think also as somebody who's from the continent, what you're saying really resonates in terms of just the need for us of bringing people together, especially women, in our societies, regardless of your ethnic or cultural background. I apologize, because your story is just so moving. So, I want us to continue thinking about that and just thinking really what we ourselves as individuals and NGOs really can continue to do to really, sort of improve the, the landscape in which we're working on. And in listening to Sandra, what I thought about is that at the UN, we talk a lot about all these different issues, but very rarely do we know the reality of what this issue means for people who are actually living them. So thank you very much for sharing that story with us. So now people talked about the annual review, which is ongoing, which is one way that we track in our unit the work that our NGOs and civil society partners are doing. But I don't know if you know that we also stalk you on social media. And I'm the number one, person in that. So our next person, Jean-Paul, is somebody who I've been stalking for at least a year and a half. His organization, Unspoken Smile, recently got associated with the Department of Global Communications. But I was just really blown away with the work that they do, and he'll tell us more about it. And, and I've followed them on Twitter and on Facebook in a lot of the service trips that they do, and it just really spoke to me and just really, gave me, sort of passion and motivation that, our NGOs, somebody who's affiliated with us is out there really doing phenomenal things. So I'm really very proud and really very excited to welcome Jean-Paul, to the podium and to hear his story. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. I'm super thrilled to be here, even though I'm a little sick. I just came back from the Dominican Republic on a mission trip, and I got sick, but looking at this room full of people with passion and being at the United Nations, there's no way any sickness will stop me from being here and connect with all of you guys. So I'm thankful for you and thankful to everyone watching online. And thanks to this amazing panel, I'm truly inspired, and I know what you guys went through. It's not easy. It is even more difficult to be in front of a public to tell your story, because most of the time, many people can tell your story more than you can do. But for me specifically, I hate telling my story. I usually like to let my actions and work speak for me. But today I'm very excited. My name is Jean-Paul Laurent, and I'm the founder of Unspoken Smiles Foundation, a nonprofit organization that promotes early oral health education and treatment for local children, and a fellowship training that provide earning opportunities for women as dental assistant in underserved communities. Building on the past success of the programs that we have helped over 7,000 children right now, in more than 8 countries now, in India, Romania, El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, Kurdistan, Iraq, and most recently, Dominican Republic. And when I saw the problems around there, it makes me really think that if we really want to solve some of the most pressing public health issues, we ought to start with the ones that can be prevented to begin with, because while treatments have the power to control many public health crises, prevention has the power to end them. And we clearly saw that through the Ebola crisis, because it wasn't treatment that completely stopped the Ebola crisis, it was the preventative measures that put an end to it. And this is why our focus is important, and that's why today we really want to showcase why oral health is integral to the sustainable development. And before I start this, I want to show you a small documentary we did about the project in India that truly showcase how a simple cavity or lack of knowledge could really about oral health could turn in deadly. And let's watch this video first, and then we'll continue. Last year, I was able to visit Maharashtra in India. As founder and CEO of Unspoken Smiles Foundation, I was curious of what I would find there. My job is to help prevent oral diseases and cancers through school-based oral health education and prevention programs. A 2004 International Agency for Research on Cancer review found that smokeless tobacco not only causes oral, but also pancreatic and esophageal cancer in humans. There are 300 million smokeless tobacco users globally, and 80% of them are in India and Bangladesh alone. Addiction to smokeless tobacco is a social norm among tribal and rural people of India, leading to astronomically high incidence of oral cancer. In a country like India, most populations do not have access to regular cancer care system. Sadly, diagnosis of cancer often leads to catastrophic increase in personal health expenditure. Such expenses often push entire families and sometimes generations below the poverty line, threatening social stability. After seeing the magnitude of the problem, we started advocating Indian government to establish a national oral cancer strategy for India with strong preventive and tobacco control measures. We have joined forces with the Society for Oral Cancer and Health to eradicate oral cancer in Gadchiroli district by 2030. In the long run, this will help to gain faith of these tribes in modern medicine, reducing quackery in rural and tribal areas. This is only the beginning. It will be a long journey, but together we will be able to make that change. Thank you. And if you could look in, if you remember one of the gentlemen that was entering the clinic that we were at, basically came in to us while I was there with an early oral cancer lesion. And when I saw him, and I saw like his face, and I looked into his eyes, I knew he knew he was in trouble, and he felt helpless. And that's why we took him in and we do an exam, early biopsy for him, and told him, you have to follow up with major treatment to treat this, otherwise you're not gonna survive. And so, and then 2 days later I left, and then early this year, like earlier this month, I asked our country representative, which you saw in the video, about his well-being. He's only 29, and I wanted to check on him to see if he followed up with treatment. And he told me he never came back, and most likely he passed away, like you saw the old man in the video, because at this stage, if you don't get treatment, the infection will spread out, and you don't have money to pay for treatments and everything like that. So this is the kind of issues that those people are facing, simply by first not knowing what to do once they have those early lesions, and second, not having proper access to care. And this is why it was important for us to include the oral health education through school, because we know that if we educate the kids early enough, then they will develop better habits so that they can focus on prevention and stop the spread of unnecessary killing of those kind of infection. But the problems we are facing as an oral health organization is that dental care is usually a low priority for most issues. And I'm very excited to have my very good friend, Dr. David, in this room with us, who was the former director of EDIAV World Dental Federation. So he knows exactly what's happening, because unconsciously people don't think oral care is important. But I'm here to tell you it is important. And our goal here with this foundation is to do the best we can with all your support to make sure that oral health is included in the Sustainable Development Goals, because when you look at the health and well-being goal number 3, there's over a few targets, but oral health is not any of them. And our goal is to push, to bring our voice on the table as one of the leading organizations in this field to make sure that oral health is included in this part. But let's take a look back on what happened in the past with the Millennium Development Goals from 2000 to 2015. So they were concerted international efforts to eradicate extreme poverty, to promote education, health, and environmental protection, as well as to accelerate development and cooperation worldwide, to a set of 8 agreed goals. These were supported by a comprehensive monetary mechanism that obliged UN member states to track progress and report regularly. Health was directly addressed by 3 of the 8 goals. But I'm here to tell you all diseases are linked directly and indirectly to all 8 MDGs. However, this advocacy opportunity was not systematically used to improve prioritization and integration of oral health on the international public health agendas. So with the MDGs expired by the end of 2015, the UN has put a global consultative process in place to take stock of the MDGs achievement and to develop a set of sustainable development goals for the period of 2015 to 2030, which you all know right now are well being advocated for. The SDGs set new goal priorities to promote sustainable and equitable development around the world. They carry forward some unfinished MDGs commitments, reinforce those where progress was made, but also put new emphasis on a framework for integrating action across multiple sectors to facilitate human development in a manner that optimizes the use of planetary resources without endangering sustainability. Health as a precondition and an outcome of sustainable development has a central role in the SDG context, in particularly Goal 3, to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for these targets, which includes 13 health targets. But of these 13 targets, at least 7 of them are directly related to oral health community. It will therefore be important to relate oral health systemically to these goals, the indicators and the targets from the outset. This will provide a framework for systemic inclusion of oral health care in strengthening health systems to promote oral health care and prevention in the context of non-communicable disease and universal health coverage, and to make strong advocacy arguments for cross-cutting and multi-sectoral integration of oral health in sustainable human development. This year, the Unspoken Smiles Foundation is rolling out the biggest call to action efforts yet. And we hope that you will support us in spreading the word about the importance of oral health and inclusion of the oral health in the global movement to eradicate oral disease and spread better awareness of non-communicable diseases. Thank you for listening to my speech, and I hope you all keep your smile, and just like many of us who will have it. Because when you see smile, I see something else. When you see smile and teeth, I see community. When you see teeth, I see career. When you see teeth, I see confidence. And I hope you can spread that to your message to your families and friends. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Paul. And I'm glad you pointed out David, because as you were talking, David Alexander, I was looking at him and just thinking that we have so many NGOs and civil society partners within our affiliation with the Department of Global Communications working on similar topics. And, you know, David has been talking to us for a while to see if we can really get something on the platform on oral health, you know, dentistry, that we really haven't been able to do that. And as you were talking, and I'm already thinking Salt Lake City, you know, what can we, you know, bring to that platform that raises to the top these very important issues that sometimes are at a very low level in some of the international frameworks that we're working and, you know, discussing on. So that's something that I would welcome, you know, that we can really, you know, work together to see, you know, how we can, you know, have that splash on the platform in Salt Lake City, or maybe, you know, on this platform, you know, as we continue this year. But thank you so much. I'm inspired by your video. It is a video that I had stalked you and seen on Twitter already, so I'm very happy that you shared it with us. In the 15, 20 minutes to the left, I want you to ask any questions, you know, that you have, or if you've been inspired and you have a personal story or comment in terms of how your organization is giving back and how we can use that as a best practice, I really welcome that. So if you can just tell us your name and your organization, and the floor is now yours for questions and comments. Thank you. I'm looking straight ahead and I see Queen Mother. Happy New Year. So we'll give her the floor first. I'll take like 2 or 3 questions and I'll pass it to the distinguished panels.
I would just like to congratulate the presenters this morning and sharing with us of implementation. It's time for us to do. And today is Education Day, where in Senegal and with France, we was able to raise last year with Brianna over $2 billion for quality education. And in saying that, I guess what I would like to have you to look at and reflect on, and it hasn't, you don't need to tell me today, since I am celebrating my 50th anniversary at the United Nations as a humanitarian, getting $1 a year for each one of those years. And so when you talk about the foundation, Smile Foundation, again, from where we smiled from the healthy perspective, and from a holistic approach to all of you, how do we move forward in the same vein and consciousness and dedication what you have demonstrated today in sharing with us? I thank you.
Thank you, Queen Mother. I see, Patrick, all the way over there.
Hi, I was just kind of inspired by what you said, how about connections, and I'm wondering, Jean-Paul, if you know of a group that's called Donate a Toothbrush. They appeared here and spoke. They're two young women, actually two girls from New Jersey, and they've donated about 300,000 toothbrushes around the world. But I think that a connection with you would be really important because their mission ends there. And I think that they can be someone who's really helping to promote what you're doing as well. And if you don't know them yet, I'm sure one of us, I could introduce you or whatever. Thank you. I'm with the NGO Reporter. Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Byron Congress, and I'm reporting with the Times. I appreciate all the information you're sharing with us. I saw a very interesting story this morning in Time magazine. It's about to release with respect to the enormous amount of mass migration from countries around the world. And for so many nations, what efforts will the UNDPI planning to address the many issues now confronting governments that are pushing back on policies and affecting immigration reforms? As you know, in our country, that's a main issue right now, and it seems that we are in a real dangerous position globally with the mass migrations that are affecting governmental policies.
So I can take one more question. I think I saw somebody up front, and then, yes.
Hello, sorry. This isn't a question, but I was really inspired by the panel today. My name is Alexandria Lee, and I'm with my colleagues here. We're from the International We Love You Foundation, and we just became associated with now, I really like GlowCom, so if you do like a social media poll, I'll definitely vote for GlowComs, okay? And I was really inspired by all of the stories, and it just reminded me of the work that We Love You Foundation does, so I would love the opportunity to share it with you all. Last year, we had the project called the Bright Haiti Project, and we donated 3,000 solar-powered lanterns to vocational students in Haiti. And we recently did a follow-up in October, and they were able to share their stories about how the light not only benefited them, but they actually share the lights with their families, with their communities, so they can all study together. And what's also really exciting is that we're planning the second phase of the Bright Haiti Project, and we're going back to the same school, and we're actually donating they're starting a new nurses program, so we're donating scrubs. We're going to be holding an East Coast-wide drive for school supplies for another school that we were able to connect with to supply children who are from pre-K to 12th grade with all different kinds of they're missing most arts and crafts and recreational I guess like facilities, equipment, and we're also donating sewing tables to them so they can continue. I think it's actually for the vocational students to continue, producing and empowering themselves and like their country as well. So I'm really looking forward to the relationship with the United Nations. It's our first foray, and I'm speaking fast. I'm a little nervous, so it would be great to meet with you, meet with everyone, and to learn more about how we can participate with the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and welcome again. Congratulations on your new affiliation. So very quickly, before I pass on to the panel, just to mention that the Department of Global Communications, really with the question on, the pushback from governments in terms of migration and the refugee situation. So our department really is advocacy and communications, setup, outfit. So in terms of the political aspects of your question, we know there are other substantive UN bodies that work with the member states, all 193 of them. So whether it's the General Assembly itself that will be dealing with such issues, or the UN High Commission, the UN Refugee Commission, or the International Organization of Migration. I'm sure that many of you know that the UN just concluded the International Conference on Migration in Marrakesh just a couple of weeks ago, where they signed, adopted an agreement. So on the political aspect, there are other people within the United Nations who will deal with that. And this is an issue, as you know, even for the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres, which is quite close to home. As you know, he headed UNHCR for many years. So there are many things that are happening on the political front. So for us in DGC, our role is to make sure that people are aware of the situation on migration or refugees, getting out the right type of communication information, advocacy campaigns to make people aware, and to get, our partners also active. Because as you know, a lot of the work that the UN does hinges or is anchored on the work that people like you on the ground are doing in many countries. UNHCR or IOM, might be doing the normative aspect of an issue, but very much so they're probably working with a number of local NGOs or CSOs on the ground, really specifically working in a refugee camp with the people who are directly impacted. So for us, it's a communications role, and we rely on you, our partners, to help us to really spread that word around. And that's really one of the responsibilities you have as an organization that is affiliated with this department. Like now we're hearing in this briefing, it's an inspirational briefing, but we're hearing a lot of very concrete stories of things that are being done. We send out our weekly announcement newsletter that tells you everything that's happening at the UN. So what do you do with it? We are hoping and pushing that you are spreading that information on the ground through your networks and through the partners that you work with. And that when you do, a training session on oral health, that you're also linking that to the SDG and talking about what does it mean, SDG 3. Or that when you are doing an event, I hope that you're talking about the conference and inviting everybody to come and to showcase the work that you're doing on the ground and elsewhere. So with that, I'll pass the mic now to the panelists if they want to answer or make comments on anything that was said before. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your amazing questions. Queen Mother is a very good friend, and when I started coming to the UN as a youth member, and also met Patrick at the Youth Assembly, and to be here, it's also a great pleasure to showcase the work that I've been doing for the past couple of years. And so to understand the concept of the issues, we have to know how many people are affected by it. And right now, according to the study of global issues, there are 3.58 billion people who are currently affected by oral disease. And 358 million of them are children who are living with untreated tooth decay. That means they go to school with teeth that have like cavities in them. And so that's why our program is focusing on school-based, because with school we are able to reach a large number of children and be able to measure the impact of our education and prevention project to the years. Because with that transitions, we'll be able to better. And this is the most cost-effective things that we could do, because it doesn't cost a lot of money to bring the resources to the schools and train the teachers and how to educate and include oral health as part of the daily curriculum. And this is one way we're doing it to make. But we need funding from different sectors, whether to education or health or women empowerment, that can build truly a public-private partnership to really bring real access to those communities. Because the way we tackle this issue is not just oral health issues. We tackle it by going to the root cause of the issues, by using the existing local women within the communities between 18 and 35 who are not working, who don't have jobs. We train them as community oral care professionals to not only help bridge the huge gap between dentists and the population, but also give them the opportunity to learn new skills and earn a living while doing this. And the pilot program we hope to start will be in Haiti and India, where with only $5 per day, those women will be able to work and provide basic education and oral services within their own communities, and therefore reducing the dependency on global missions from the U.S., which oftentimes also kills the local jobs for dentists, which we also think are mindful about. We don't want to really kill the local dentist job, and that's why rather than that, we want to build partnership with them, train more people to provide basic care within the own community. But in order to do that, we need to raise more money and pull more resources to bring those resources to them.
Thank you, Jean-Paul. I don't know if Felipe and Sandra have anything to add?
Yes.
Yes, please. The floor is yours.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm just going to add a few points. One of the ways that our NGO is helping, the first one is the Puerto Rican Transformation Project, which is the most pressing one right now. And through that project, we've been teaching people about clean energy, goal number 7, and sustainable cities, goal number 11. So we're very proud of that. But not only through the project, not talking just about the project, but also our organization has been a leading sponsor to other organizations to come and affiliate themselves with the UN, with the Department of Global Communications. I am preaching to everybody that I meet to come and get to know the UN, affiliate with the UN departments and entities, and really continue promoting the work and the mission of the UN together with their mission, because there is a lot in common and a lot of times they don't see it. And also through that, continue promoting the 17 Sustainable Goals. One of the ways you do that is you wear the button all the time. And people will ask you, what is that? And then you go on explaining what it is. So, just a little story for the dental health department. So when my children were born, both of them, I guess at the age of 6 months or so, I started brushing their teeth. There were no teeth, they were just gums. But the thing became such a fun place with the children that later on, when they were older, I used to tell them if they didn't behave, I wasn't going to brush their teeth. It was like a punishment. You should have seen how those kids run and almost cry because they were so accustomed to be brushing teeth and massaging gums and all that. So I totally understand the education of brushing teeth. And today I'm very proud to say an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old with absolutely no cavities. So thank you.
I think just one quick thing to say. For me, what I'm learning is that it's very important to stay consistent in what we're all doing. One way that I'm keeping myself accountable and our organization accountable is by staying in one area and really working with the communities that we're working with from the inside out and getting to know them. I learned that the people we work with are unfortunately have become very distrusting of nonprofits because of the promise to work together. And then, I know the news cycle moves quickly and problems, like there's so much need in the world and you want to touch everywhere and you can't. But unfortunately for those people that we start working with and then leave, what does it mean for them? Because their problems didn't go away, and you came in and gave them hope and disrupted something and then left. So what I'm learning is that it's very important to stay consistent in your work, to build trust with the people that you're working with. And I think that goes towards building also not just a better community in that community, but a more trusting world and a better world. Because I believe that change also spreads, just like kindness, just like love. Change spreads. If you can make, if you can make change in one area, most likely that change will move itself. It will change. From those people will go on to change other communities and to touch other lives. So I encourage all of you to to try to keep yourself accountable and staying consistent in your work.
Thank you, Sandra. So we have time for maybe one or two more points. I see Birjan, please go ahead.
Hi, I am Birjan Ünver, and I represent the Light Millennium Organization. However, as first, I congratulate for your promotion. We haven't really addressed that. And I also thank you for this inspirational session and all of my new NGO colleagues. I do have one general question to three of them and also one specific to Sandra. Yes, always we've been talking about partnership within the NGOs and especially here. But I'd like to know here your opinion, visions, expectation, how we can work together, how we can collaborate. And to Sandra, also it goes to all of you, especially from the migration, immigrant, we all have home and we are here, so we belong to at least two countries, right? But based on our own experience and our own focus, we are a right-based organization. We are acting as a bridge, both from communities I come from and from the UN back to my communities as much as we can reach out. So what is your overall vision, both at home, at the UN, within us, and also to back to your home country, whether local communities or on the governmental level? For instance, for the immigration, what would you really expect the most pushing, urgent, by the communities and by the government should be taken? This is for Sandra. Also in the US, especially missing logging, it will be for you, with you forever. But what could make that best? You know, what kind of policy changes or cultural changes? What is your vision in that? Thank you.
Thank you, Birjan. I had a last question, but I think I'm going to go with yours. I like yours, Birjan. So I'll let the panel members take your question as a last voice or thought before we leave today. And please stay with us for another couple of minutes because we have another fantastic hashtag strong women who's going to perform for us. Vivi Hu, who is already here with us in the room, and I'm sure you'll enjoy that. So shall we start with Sandra with final thoughts?
My vision for Congo specifically, in terms of migration, I like to think that I work in prevention, whereas I like to encourage my community to really build a community and not look towards outside as like a saving grace. Unfortunately, the communities that I work with, many of them feel like they can only ever make it if they leave there. And to me, that's so scary because I'm looking at this beautiful country filled with so much potential. I'm like, no matter how open borders work in the US or Canada or wherever else you want to go, even if they all open their borders, they cannot take everybody. So what are we going to do? We have to do something. We have to work and make sure that we're keeping our youth here. I said I was visiting Congo this past year, and unfortunately, I didn't meet with many youth. If a parent can afford it, they usually send their kid to study somewhere not in Congo, either in neighboring countries, or now it's very popular to send them in India. So I actually got into my work as a way to kind of prevent that, because I've been on the other end of being a refugee and seeing how that is and all the difficulties that come with migration and being a refugee. So to me, at least in my work, we try to show people, the road that you have to take in order to get to resettlement. Many don't know that you can leave your home and go spend the next 40 years in a refugee camp. Or even if you get lucky to be resettled, you don't know where you're going to be resettled, and you don't know how life is going to end. And it's not all great and amazing. These countries have problems of their own as well that you have to understand. So honestly, it's a very complex issue, but I think for me that if we all work in our own communities, I think we can contribute to prevention a little more than we think. Even while I was there were 3 young men that were getting ready to leave and go to Kenya. Their hope was to get into the refugee camps there and then be resettled. And I told them, I was like, it's not going to happen for at least the next 10 years. You know, I have some extended family members that have lived in those refugee camps for the last 10 years, and it's just not going to happen. And then, you know, kind of introducing them to what could happen in Congo if we invested in each one of us. And I think that's my vision, and I think that's where the solution lies.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you so much. Alibe?
Am I on? Okay. Well, just this situation with immigration, there are so many different reasons now why people are immigrating. Some of them are poverty, other ones are dictatorships, wars, and all that. And I think what we need is to really push so the countries where they are lucky not to be having those problems can create a way of making immigration and the transition of these human beings crossing borders more humane. That's one of the biggest issues. It's not the problem of welcoming them or not welcoming them in the country. There are many ways that they can allow them to come in and work maybe for a year until the family is stable, or the country, they can go back to their countries. But I think, so there are 2 points to this. One is to help the country that has the problem, which is producing the immigrants, and the other one is for the other countries to really find a way to do the process in a more humane way. We have to remember that we are all human beings, and the very end, you strip the language, the culture, the continent, we are all human beings, and we can be afraid of them, we can be, we can turn our backs on them, because the thing is that it can happen to you. Like it happened so close to my family, living in Chile, many people run away from the dictatorship. Thanks God I stay in Chile, but I also stay under very hardest circumstances. So we never know when it might be your turn to be the immigrant. So keep that in your mind and keep that thought of helping and not turning away. Thank you.
Thank you, Libe. And final thoughts now from Jean-Paul.
Thank you for listening to me, and I hope after today you all understand the importance of oral health and its implication in your overall health. And my vision for this year and beyond towards 2030 is to create the world's largest community oral care professionals, which will be able to provide access to basic dental services in underserved communities, irrespective of backgrounds, geographical region, and socioeconomic status and religion, and therefore, and build more confidence, improving health, and transforming more futures. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for really those inspiring words. So with that, I'd like us to finish off with really more inspiration. And it is a pleasure for me to welcome to our civil society platform Vivi Hu, who is a New York-based Chinese vocalist, songwriter, leader of a band. She's very focused on promoting international exchange around the arts. Vivi, please welcome to our panel. We do have the standing mic there. Is that one okay for you? Do we have the other mic for her? DGC team? I think she needs to have that standing mic also. Yeah. Can somebody bring it down for her, please? Thank you. As Vivi is preparing, I wanted to let you know that, thank you, Alibe, for mentioning the SDG pin. I have a very passionate colleague, Felipe, who quickly, he always has one in his pocket, who quickly pulled one out and wanted me to officially present it to Sandra.
Thank you.
So go out there and spread the word about the SDG, Sandra. So, ready.
Hi, everyone. Okay, we are on. Good afternoon. My name is Vivi Hu, and Sandra mentioned earlier that love can spread and change will spread. I believe every one of us had or have a dream, which is change the world. If you are a teacher, you want to change the world by teaching useful tools to your students. And if you're a doctor, you want to change the world by saving lives. I'm a singer. I want to change the world by singing songs that encourage everyone. So I'm going to bring this song called Change the World. If I could reach the stars, pull one down for you, shining on my heart, so you could see the truth, that this love I have inside is everything it seems. But for now I find it's only in my dream that I can change the world. You could be the sunlight in my universe. You would think my love was really something good, baby, if I could change the world. If I could be king, even for a day, I'll take you as my queen. Yes, I have no other way. And our love will rules in this kingdom that we've made. Yes, I am not a fool. I'm wishing for a day that I can change the world. You could be the sunlight in my universe. You would think my love was really something good, baby, if I could change the world, baby, if I could change the world, baby, if I could. Somebody say, change the world, baby, if I could. Everybody say, change the world, baby, if I could change the world. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Vivi. So if this is your first time attending our platform, you'll see that, we talk a lot about substantive issues, but we really like to do it in a way where we feel that we're connecting to people. So a lot of our briefings, we'll have a panelist format, but we like to really integrate a lot of the arts, singing, the spoken word, hearing really personal stories. Because I want you to leave here and not just, have the blah, 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 and the noise of everything. When you leave here, I want you to leave here psyched, passionate, remembering the speakers and what they said, and the beautiful songs or the poetry that you heard. And I want you to take that and to put it into action. I want you to remember what you heard. So I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the Department of Global Communications to really thank all our panel members, Sandra, Alibe, and Jean-Paul, for really taking time in a really, really very, very rainy day to be here with us and to share their passion. I want to thank Stephanie and Vivi to really, for really being here and to sharing their passion of the arts with us. I want to thank you, because it's really bad weather out there, and you have come out in numbers. We really do appreciate it. And thanking also all our staff that has really worked hard to put this briefing together. It's not easy working with Hawa, you know. Remember, I'm that second grader human rights defender. So I want you to stand up and join me if you have been inspired today, if you're going to go out there, if you're going to trailblaze, if you're going to change the world. Stand up and give yourself a round of applause. Thank you really very much from the bottom of our hearts. We look forward to welcoming you to our next briefing, which is the 31st of January, which will be our Holocaust briefing. Thank you and get home safely.